And so if you put more than one of these factors together, the students and the attrition danger increases. Okay? And a student with all of these is the very top of the danger list. Okay? So one of the things that the provost has asked us to focus on is an early alert system. And so we have started thinking about, okay, what are the signs for at-risk students? What might we be looking at in various ways for an early alert system? And these are some of the signs that all of you may have seen in your classrooms, in your residence halls, in your offices. Okay? Poor classroom attendance is at the top of that list. A lot of the national experts are saying students who don't go to class are at risk of not being retained. They're not engaged. They're not taking it seriously. Okay. They may have their attention elsewhere. Okay. Does not participate in class discussions or complete work on time. Okay. So if they just sit there with their head on the desk, they never turn anything in, those are signs that they're at risk. Maybe they're struggling with the coursework. Okay. They're turning things in, but they're getting bad grades early on. They're not prepared when they come to class. They don't bring books and pencils and paper and all that stuff that they might need to take notes and engage in what's going on in the classroom. Okay. In the residence halls, you may see a student sleeping a lot, right? Students next door neighbors, if you're an RA or an ARD or an RD in the residence halls, student who's just sleeping the day away. Changes in appearance or demeanor can be an at-risk signal. They may be partying too much, they may be depressed, they may be homesick. If students never appear to be studying, you see the student all the time, they never have books with them, okay? They never seem to be doing anything in an academic nature. Excessive drinking and partying, of course. Going home every weekend, okay? And that's a signal that they're not connecting here, they're not getting engaged. They're not making friends. Okay? Their life is back at home. If they aren't making friends, they always seem to be alone. They don't seem to be in groups. Okay? They're not engaging in social activities. If you see homesickness, or they tell you they're homesick, okay, those are at-risk signals.
Okay, so this is the participatory part, which I'm excited because I like to sit down and listen to what somebody else has to say, instead of keeping hearing Carla and myself.
Although we are fascinated.
So here's our question, and what we really need is to have a discussion as a group about how do we take what we each see as risk factors and figure out a way to funnel that into some sort of system that would alert so that we could then get the help to the students that need it. So we match up what they need with who can help them, so we can get them back on track. So that's the big overarching goal for the rest of this conversation. So what we want to do is break out and do a couple things. So the first question we want to talk about is, what can each of us do to identify a student that might fall into an at-risk category? And there's going to obviously be other things beyond what we've identified as ways you know they might be at risk, and we want to hear what you think those are as well. And then secondly, what would you be willing to do or participate in at an institution-wide level to indicate the student's at risk? What kind of system? What would you actually be willing to do if in your head it was like, I know that student's in danger, somebody should know? What would you then be willing to do to indicate that, so that we can build a system that people will actually utilize? CORE doesn't want to spend a lot of time building something that then only we participate in, because that won't get us anywhere. So those are the two big questions that we want to be able to do. And then the last one we want to talk about is, what's one thing inside whatever unit you're a part of, whether it's an academic department, a student affairs or student services office on campus, what's one thing your unit could do in the next year that would help us raise the retention rate? It could be as small or as large as you wanted to tackle, but what's one thing you guys could go back and in the next 30 days say we could do that and start thinking about how to employ that. So those are the two things that we want to talk about for the next little bit. And then we're going to get together, share some of that information with the group as well, and then start talking about what's next and where we are going to go with that. Do the questions that we're asking make sense? Okay. So how we want to do this is we're going to kind of break out by what kind of role we have on campus so that we can have these conversations better, because obviously this would be a big room to have that kind of conversation. So now what we'd like to do is just hear maybe a couple of highlights from each group about your discussion. Obviously the core members that were in there, we're going to compile everything that was discussed and talked about. But we're just going to kind of talk about what happened in each group. And see if we can find some common themes or some common understanding, and then we'll keep moving from there. So if I might be so bold, Patty, would you mind starting and talk about?
Sure. I was really lucky. I had a group of 6 grad students and 1 undergrad. And I had the group of undergraduates and grad students, and what was interesting is their area is counseling and student development and housing and student affairs, so they already have a heart for caring anyway, so that was kind of exciting. One of the things that they said from their side is identifying at risk is they really look at behaviors, and particularly isolating behaviors. From their standpoint, they sort of go through their courses in cohorts, and so when they see students that isolate themselves at breaks, or before and after class, that's a red flag for them. That they realize that I think somebody said, I think it was Fred that said, everybody likes to, if there's one thing they like to do in grad school is complain about grad school, and if they won't even engage in that, then they know that things are a challenge. Those with assistantships felt that the assistantship helped them stay engaged. It gave them a support group that our graduate students without an assistantship are not able to get, or it's much more difficult for them. And the one thing that they felt could be changed is that perhaps at the graduate school level, and I'm paraphrasing here, but maybe part of orientation, but that there be some, and in the departmental graduate programs, looking at ways to build cohorts. And that it's a challenge for some of those programs that are evenings only, weekends only, they're off campus, but to really build a sense of community so that when you see somebody that's struggling, you can ask. And that was, I said, what can you do? And they said, you ask. But you have to feel comfortable enough to ask, are you okay? And so for them, it was about making the connections. And they were all willing to do that. But then the question came up, what about at the undergrad level? How can we help build cohorts for our undergrads? And then we ran out of time. So thank you for asking me to work with them. It was great.
Thanks, Patty. Jody? He's behind
Jody's
you.
behind you, Chad.
Okay, our group for the campus-wide activity, we talked about creating a campus-wide mentoring program.
No,
It's just for the
It's just
podcast.
for the podcast.
Okay. Thanks, Lynette. Also, have a central place for employees and staff to go to find resources for students, which led into finding a tracking system, possibly in Banner, for staff and faculty to be able to input early warning signs or to identify at-risk students immediately so that we can share that resource with one another. I think Mississippi State might have a similar type of system. There were a couple concerns with that. One, concerns about possible liability, student confidentiality, and then also to protect the trust that the student has developed with that individual who's reporting them at risk. So those might be some things we need to consider. And then we also went on to talk about finding an easy way for students to report on their peers, to encourage students to provide resources or address, or what's the word I'm looking for, lead other students to the areas that they need, whether it's an academic issue, financial issue, whatever those might be.
Mona.